Hey everyone, welcome back to my JavaScript course. This is the second part of the week 2 or section 2 assignment lecture. So in the first half of this we went over the data types and the variables. And in this half we're going to go over the math library and how to do math in JavaScript. So here is a couple of examples that I coded up real quickly. I'm going to go ahead and run this real quick so I can show you guys what all the outputs look like, and we're going to go through them step by step. So the first thing we're going to talk about is all of these different operators. So these operators, as you can see, is addition, subtraction, multiplication, exponentiation, division, and modulo, which is the remainder operator. So that's addition is, well, pretty self-explanatory. It's the plus sign. Subtraction is minus. Multiplication is going to be the star. Exponentiation is 2 stars. Exponentiation, if you guys don't know, what this is pretty much saying is 3 to the power 2, or in other words, 3 times 3. So 3 times itself 2 times. That's what this means. And you can see 3 times 3 is 9, and the result of that is right here. It is 9 right here. Next, we have division. That's going to be 1.5, 3 divided by 2. Modulo is the remainder operator, and this is the remainder of the division. So this one, it's not really used too much. The most of the time when you will use this is if you want to check if a number is even or if something is divisible by something else. So for example, I don't know, is even, this would be, so some number modulo 2, and we're going to check if the result of that is equal to 0. If it is, then this is going to evaluate to true. If you remember in the last lecture we talked about Boolean values, so this ends up being a Boolean value, and this is just checking if the remainder of this is going to be 0 or not. And if it is, then whatever this number is, some number, is indeed divisible by 2, which implies that it is even. To check if something is odd, you would just use this, and this is the, I don't know, how do you say it? Not, I think it's the not operator, the not equals operator, pretty much, yeah. So this is just saying if they're not equal. So this is going to be is odd. And that's how you check if numbers are odd or even, actually. Pretty cool, right? And then, you can check if it's divisible by some other number. If you want to see if it's divisible by 5, you just put a 5 there and check if it's equal to 0. And that's it. That's really the main use case for this. There's some other more advanced math programming that some people might do, but in day-to-day life, you won't run into anything more complex than what I just showed you when it comes to the modulo operator. That's really the main use case for it. Okay, next we have the increment and decrement operators. So here you can see incrementing is plus plus. We have plus equals, minus minus, and minus equals. So plus plus, all you're doing is you're saying that it is increasing by 1. That is all that is. Plus plus means increase by 1. So here, if we have the variable a, and we're starting it off, and it's going to be equal to 1. In step 1, we're console logging it. So step 1 right here, you can see it's equal to 1. And then here we are incrementing it by 1 value. So we're adding 1 to a, which is going to make it 2. And then this, as you can probably guess, plus equals, this operator means add 3. You can make this any number. You can make it 6, 111, whatever you like, but we have it as 3. And that's going to then make a equal 4. So you can see in step 2, 5. In step 2, you can see a is equal to 5. And then the minus minus operator, as you can probably guess, just means subtract 1. And here you can see it is now 4. And then here is minus equals 2.2. I just did this to show you guys that you can use decimal numbers as well in here. It doesn't have to be just integers. And when you do that, you get 1.7999999 as a result. But yeah, these are pretty easy. They're not, you know, they're very simple operators, and they're used a lot in loops. So when you loop, we haven't gone over loops yet, but you'll eventually see them in this course. But pretty much you'll have a variable, something like this, and you're going to have a condition where you're going to check and say, hey, if, while, A is less than 10, do this. And then you're going to, at the end of the loop, you're going to increment it by 1. So you're going to tell it to do that 10 times. That's what that kind of means. And that's what these are kind of used for a lot. And then the math library itself is right here. So let's go ahead and run this so we can get the output for it. So this isn't the entire library. There is way more like functionality in this library. I just kind of picked out the most popular and the most used functions in the math library. And if you're curious and you want to learn more about the math library, I'll put a link in the description below, and you can read more about it. But for the sake of this course, this is honestly, this is more than we'll even probably need. But I want to show you guys all of this. So the first one is the round operator, or not operator, sorry, the round function. So the round function just takes a decimal number and it rounds it to the nearest whole value. So for example, as you can see in the console down here, so when we round 1.4, it's going to round it down to 1. 1.5, I actually wasn't sure what this was going to do either. I had actually run it myself. I didn't know if it was going to be a 1 or a 2, but it looks like they round up when you get to 5. So it is a 2. And then 1.6 is also a 2 because it rounds up. And then speaking of rounding up and down, we have our ceil and floor functions. So these two, this one rounds down and this one rounds up, hence the name. So ceil was like the name comes from the ceiling. So when the ceiling is above you, you go up, so you're rounding up. Math.floor, the floor is below you, so you round down. So here you can see 3.1, if you round up, you're going to get 4. 3.9, if you round down, you're going to get 3. Math.trunc, this just pretty much truncates everything after the decimal point, just drops it off and just gives you everything before the decimal point. Math.pow, this is math.power. It's short for power. It's the same as the exponential operator. This is the same thing. Just here you're saying 5 to the power 3. So same thing, just a different way to write it. Square root. So square root of 16 is 4. Pretty easy. Absolute value, math.absolute is negative. So absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Pretty self-explanatory. This one's cool. I like this one a lot. Math.max and math.min. So when you give it a bunch of numbers like this separated by commas, it will give you the maximum, and min will give you the minimum of all of those numbers. So that's really useful as well. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. This is I think it's fairly straightforward. If you know some math, you should be fine. And again, we're not going to be doing, we're not doing. There's sine and cosine in here as well. If you look in the link below, like they have some pretty crazy stuff, but it's very rare that you'll ever need to do something like that. That's more for people who are doing like science kind of things. But hey, if you're into that, check that out. But for the purposes of this course, and probably for the purposes of most things you'll ever do in your life with programming, this is probably the most you'll ever need. Okay, thank you guys, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and happy coding.